All right, I'm here with Caleb Pouliot, and we're going through a biomechanical assessment and looking at the function of his muscles and basically the neuromuscular integrity. So when I first started assessing him, he was very limited in external rotation of the shoulder, internal rotation of the shoulder. I mean, bringing the arm up next to his ear, he couldn't even get it down toward his ear, and he pole vaults. And so he needs as much motion and shoulder flexion as possible, and he couldn't even get back toward his ear. And so in the first session, we basically addressed a lot of core muscles because the core, everything anchors off a stable core. So in order to have a stable shoulder, you have to have a stable core first. And so we got to work on his core, got his shoulder working, and significantly increased his range of motion in internal and external rotation. He still had pain at end ranges. And the end ranges, that's the position that the body's protecting. When it senses instability, it doesn't want you to move in those end ranges because that's where it's the most vulnerable. And so the lack of range of motion is the fact that the muscles are not comfortable being in those extremes of range of motion. And so the first sign of neuromuscular weakness is protective tightness. The second sign is pain. If you take them into those ranges that the body's vulnerable in, the body shouts out in pain saying, literally, don't do this until you fix the problem. So we went through, got his range of motion improved. The second session he came back. I mean, he goes back, and I always say life's gonna beat you up. He left here stronger, he left here more stable with more mobility, but then he went back and he started pole vaulting again. And he had to micro progress to even get to the point where he could actually load that shoulder through the vaulting. And so that just took time. And while he's getting back to vaulting, he's putting stress on his shoulder. And so it set him back a little bit. He started having some pain and the body started tightening back up. So we got him back out here. So first session was in November, then we got him back out here in January. In January, it was still, even though he regressed a bit, he was doing more, and he never regressed back to the point where he was so limited in his range of motion in the shoulder. By the time we were done last time, I mean, his shoulder motion was past his ear, like shoulder flexion. Now you can see now, I mean, that's 30, 40 degrees past where he was when he first came in. The same thing in external rotation and internal rotation. I mean, he's increased 20 or 30 degrees in range of motion. Mobility is a representation of stability. When you get the muscles activated and they can fire and fire on demand, and they're able to tolerate forces, the body will give you all the motion in the world. So the goal is with MAT is melt the ice. If you provide a sense of stability, the body will give you all the mobility in the world. We went through today, every single core muscle was strong, every single hip muscle was strong. At one point, every one of these muscles needed to be addressed and activated. Now at the lower leg and foot muscles, he had some Achilles tendon issues, and the lower leg and foot muscles are all strong. So his whole body is strong, and there were just some instabilities that were still in his shoulder, which is his weak link. When we readdressed the instabilities in the shoulder, and literally it's the best motion that he's had, range of motion, I mean, in shoulder flexion, external rotation, internal rotation, horizontal abduction, these positions were actually not only tight, but he was tentative to be in those positions, especially when I was doing a muscle test, because his body was unstable and it was a little painful for him. Now we have him strong, we have him stable, and now he's ready to go let life beat him up again.
Yeah. Thanks.